The rain poured mercilessly that night, blurring the streetlights into streaks of gold and grey. Daniel, a single father and former firefighter, gripped the steering wheel of his old pickup as he drove home from his late shift at the mechanic's shop. His daughter Sophie was asleep in the back seat, her tiny hands clutching her worn-out teddy bear. They'd had a rough few years, losing his wife to illness, fighting to make ends meet, but Daniel never complained. He lived for his little girl, her laughter the only light that kept him going through the dark. Up ahead, through the sheet of rain, he noticed flashing hazard lights. A sleek black car had crashed into a ditch, smoke curling from the hood. Without thinking twice, Daniel pulled over. The storm was relentless, wind whipping against his jacket as he rushed toward the wreck. Through the shattered window, he saw a woman slumped over the wheel, unconscious, bleeding from a gash on her forehead. "Hey, ma'am, can you hear me?" he shouted, but she didn't respond. Acting on instinct, Daniel broke open the door and carefully pulled her out. The car smelled of gasoline, one spark and it could explode. He carried her in his arms, rain drenching them both, and laid her gently on the side of the road. Her pulse was weak but steady. He ripped off his flannel shirt to press against her wound, whispering, "Hang in there, okay? You're gonna be fine." Sophie had woken up by now, watching from the truck with wide eyes as her dad worked in the storm. Moments later, the sound of sirens pierced through the night. Paramedics rushed in, taking over as Daniel stepped back, soaked and trembling from the cold. One of them turned to him, saying, "You probably saved her life." But Daniel just nodded, quietly returning to his truck. Before anyone could ask his name, he drove off into the rain, disappearing into the night. The woman's name was Alexandra Pierce, one of the wealthiest businesswomen in the state. The news spread the next morning. Billionaire CEO rescued after near-fatal. Crash at unknown hero still missing. Cameras flashed. Interviews aired, but Daniel never came forward. He didn't save her for recognition. It was just what a decent man would do. He went back to work the next day, like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Alexandra woke up in the hospital, disoriented but alive. The doctors told her about the man who saved her, how he'd vanished before giving his name. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't felt since before her wealth and fame: humility. She had everything money could buy, yet her life had been saved by a stranger who wanted nothing in return. She hired private investigators, put out rewards, even went on national television to find him. But Daniel stayed invisible, just another working man blending into the background of life. Weeks passed and fate decided to intervene. One morning, Daniel and Sophie were sitting in a small diner, sharing pancakes before school. Sophie's giggles filled the air as Daniel helped her with her syrup. In the corner booth sat Alexandra, disguised under a hat and sunglasses, sipping coffee while discussing business on her phone. When she heard that laugh, bright, innocent, unmistakably pure, something inside her stirred. She looked up and their eyes met. She froze. It was him. The same tired eyes, the same steady calm she remembered through the blur of that storm. She stood abruptly, walking toward their table. "It's you," she said softly, voice trembling. Daniel looked up, surprised. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" he asked politely. "You saved me," she whispered, "that night in the rain. I've been searching for you for weeks." Daniel blinked, realizing who she was. "I just did what anyone would do," he said simply. But Alexandra shook her head. "No, not anyone would. You risked your life for a stranger." She knelt beside Sophie. "And you must be the brave little girl he was protecting." Sophie smiled shyly. Alexandra insisted on repaying him. "Please let me help. You deserve more than thanks." But Daniel gently declined. "I don't need anything. Just knowing you're okay is enough." His humility struck her, deeper than she expected. Here was a man who had nothing yet lived with more dignity than anyone she'd ever met in her world of power and greed. Still, Alexandra couldn't forget him. Over the next few weeks, she began visiting the diner often, sometimes accidentally, sometimes not. They talked, slowly learning about each other. She discovered that Daniel had left firefighting after losing his wife because he couldn't bear another loss. He worked 2 jobs to raise his daughter alone. He discovered that behind Alexandra's wealth was a woman who had lost her sense of peace long ago, buried under business meetings and headlines. One day, Alexandra invited Daniel and Sophie to her estate under the pretense of thanking them properly. Sophie's eyes lit up seeing the gardens and the horses. Alexandra watched as Daniel helped Sophie feed a foal, his gentle patience shining through every movement. "You're a good man," Alexandra said quietly. "There aren't many left like you." But Daniel smiled faintly. "You just need to look in the right places." Their friendship deepened into something neither expected. Alexandra started helping quietly, offering Sophie a scholarship to a better school, donating anonymously to Daniel's local fire department. But Daniel, proud and independent, felt conflicted. He didn't want to feel like charity. "You don't owe us anything," he said one night as they stood under the stars. "It's not debt," she replied softly. "It's gratitude. You reminded me what it means to live for something real." As time passed, gratitude turned into affection. Alexandra began visiting Daniel's small home more often, helping him cook, reading bedtime stories to Sophie. The billionaire and the single dad, 2 worlds that never should have crossed, somehow found peace in each other's company. Then came the night that changed everything again. The diner where Daniel worked caught fire after hours. He was off duty, but when he saw the smoke, he didn't hesitate. He rushed in to save the owner trapped inside, just like he had years before as a firefighter. Alexandra arrived moments later, terrified, only to see him emerge through the smoke. Coughing but alive, the owner safe behind him. Cameras flashed again, and this time the world saw who he was. News outlets called him the humble hero. Alexandra, standing by his hospital bed, took his hand and whispered, "The world finally knows who you are." "But I already did." Months later, Daniel and Alexandra stood together at a community center she funded in his honor, built to help single parents and veterans rebuild their lives. Daniel spoke humbly at the opening ceremony. "I didn't save her that night because she was rich or famous. I did it because that's what people are supposed to do, help each other. The world needs more of that." The crowd rose to their feet, clapping, many with tears in their eyes. Sophie beamed proudly beside him, and Alexandra, her eyes glistening,